This video is part 2 of a cooking challenge that was originally going to just be one video, but I split it for slightly more watch-friendly runtimes. In part 1, I went to Aldi with a £10 budget and came back with this collection of shopping, and we enjoyed a roast dinner, a savoury snack and a weird breakfast pie, as well as creating a whole lot of leftovers to be used along with the remaining ingredients, plus a few little bits from the cupboard, fridge and spice rack. Let's see what happens next. So we've got quite a lot of stuff here. We've got leftover cooked vegetables. There is some leftover gravy. We've got those bits of onion, and mostly onion and leek, that I froze. We've got more than half the bunch of celery. I haven't even opened the tin tomatoes or red kidney beans. We've got this jug of stock, which actually has not set into completely jellied form. I suppose it would have done if I'd made that in the pressure cooker, but I only boiled it. And then I've got these lentils that I've had soaking for 24 hours. We've got oats, we've got some egg, we've got 4 eggs left. There's quite a lot of stuff. Now, I want to make some soup, but the soup is going to be served this evening. But I'm going to make it now because I'm going to use some of it as a sauce for the thing I'm making for lunch, which is going to be something a bit along the lines of tacos. So to start off, I'm going to have a couple of sticks of celery. I know celery's not a thing that everybody likes. I really do. It does develop a really nice savoury flavour. You could think of celery as kind of watery parsley, I suppose. It is in the same family. I'm also going to chop up, well, if I can, I'm going to chop up these frozen leeks. Right, over to the cooker now. And what I'm going to do here is just skim that fat off the top of the stock there. That's mostly chicken fat. If the stock had set firm, this would have been easier because it would just scrape off. But that is a mixture of chicken fat plus the oil that I actually added when I roasted the potatoes. So that's going to go on the heat, and that will spit a little bit because it's got a little bit of stock in there as well, because I couldn't separate it exactly. So that will spit a little bit when it gets hot. So I probably won't get that searing hot before I put the vegetables in. Right, before that starts spitting, I'm going to fry that now until I start to see a little bit of caramelisation. Right, nice little bit of browning going on there. I've just thrown in a chopped clove of garlic just from my cupboard ingredients. I tend to put the garlic in late because otherwise it will burn. It burns a lot more easily than the other things, than onion and so on. But yeah, that is now ready to get some stock in there to deglaze that pan and start making the soup. So I think we'll go for about 3/4 of my chicken stock. I could turn that back up now. And we're going to have some lentils in there. So I reckon like about a couple of handfuls of lentils. And we can get the lid on now and just bring that to a boil, then reduce it to a simmer and just cook it until those lentils are tender. And we will have some tomatoes in the soup as well. Now I could have got chopped tomatoes for the same price, a tin of chopped tomatoes or a tin of peeled whole tomatoes. I went for the whole ones just because it gives me more options. They were the same price. I don't suppose they're going to be all that whole. They are quite cooked down quite soft. I'm just going to reserve one of those tomatoes. Let's have a bit of the juice as well. The rest of that can is going to go in the soup. And to save me getting in a massive mess with this, I'm actually just going to cut those tomatoes up with scissors in the can there, like that. That ought to do it. Those can go in there. And of course we are going to need some seasoning. And I would normally use a stock cube here, but there is quite a lot going on here already. There's already my homemade stock in there. So I think just a little bit of salt. About 1/4 teaspoon of salt is all we're going to need. I'll just bring that back up to a simmer again. Now, I want to make something for lunch that's a little bit like tacos. Maybe, well, at least some kind of flatbread type of thing that we can put things in and wrap them up and eat them. So, how am I going to make flatbreads? I've got oats. You can do flatbreads with oats, but I'm going to get a little bit experimental here. I've got these lentils that I've had soaking overnight in here. We're going to blend that down to a paste, a fine paste. We will add some oats as well, and probably an egg. And I'm going to make pancakes, but lentil and oat pancakes. Now I think there is a possibility that if we just blend up these lentils and add some oats and some liquid, water is what I've got, that it might set as pancakes even without an egg. But since I've got eggs, I'm going to put one in. Okay, so we have lentil milk, which is going to go in here. Now it has blended down to quite a fine, creamy liquid. I'm going to add to this 1 egg. And then this is the oats that I blended down to make kind of oat, well, not exactly oat flour, but fine oatmeal. And we'll have some of that in there as well, just to thicken this up. Bit more. Now I've got to be careful here. Whoops. I had to say it, didn't I? Right, that's more than I intended to add. So I'm going to let this stand now, and I suspect that's going to thicken up a fair bit because those oats will hydrate and they will take up some of the water and they will expand a bit. Anyway, that's going to stand and thicken for a bit. While we wait for that to thicken, the soup is still simmering away over there, and it's nearly done, actually. The lentils, those red lentils, don't take very long to cook at all. But I'm just going to take some of this sweet potato here and just take the skin off. Maybe we'll go for like 4 pieces of it. There's still 1 piece left in there. And I'm going to mash that sweet potato just with a fork because I want this to kind of break down completely into the soup. I was going to blend the soup, but I think it might be more interesting to have a soup with a bit of texture. So I'll just mash that sweet potato down like that. And then that can go into this soup, which, as you can see, the lentils are almost done. Sweet potato can go in there. And that's good. And now, because that sweet potato's thickened the soup up, the lentils are not all just sinking to the bottom. I think we'll have a little taste. That's rather nice. I'm just going to turn the heat off now. Cover that up. That soup is going to be this evening's meal, but it's also going to be part of lunch as well. Pancake batter has thickened up quite nicely. It's just about the right, I would say, consistency for what I would expect from a pancake batter. But will it pancake is the question. So I've got a non-stick pan here on the heat, and I'm not putting any oil in here because this is quite a good non-stick pan. It shouldn't need any additional oil in here. But we're going to get that nice and hot. In fact, I might just move it across to a different size ring. This one here is a slightly better fit for that pan. And the first pancake is sometimes a disaster anyway. So these are going to be fairly small pancakes because I want to use them like tortillas for tacos. So I reckon probably only something like that. Hard to tell if that's setting or not. It appears to be. Can give it a bit longer on that side. Maybe turn the heat down to 7. Oh, it's got bubbles appearing. A bit like a kind of like a pikelet or something, or a crumpet. Not exactly what I expected, but okay. I think we might get away with it. Okay, I mean, it is working. I think we've ended up with something a little bit more like maybe a blini than tortilla, but, you know, it's not a failure. Not yet. I suppose I could start another one there while this one's finishing off, but I feel like they might get stuck together. Anyway, there it is. I think that one's good to come out now. I think we maybe go for a little slightly larger one this time. But make it larger by spreading it around a bit. The holes could be a problem if we're going to stuff these, because that means all the filling's going to ooze through, so I might need to think about a different plan for that. But yeah, there's the one that's cooked, and well, we could make a taco with that, couldn't we? Yeah, those holes are going to be a problem. Okay, well there's the last one. I've switched to a larger spatula, which is what I should have done all along. And that's been kind of a success, I think, for certain values of success. So that's my little stack of weird pancakes. Now we need to make something to fill them with. So for that filling, leftover chicken. Oh, there's a gristly bit there, which Eva will be more than happy to be awarded. Oh, here she is. Like, as if by magic, a small dog appears. Right, and I'm going to shred this rather than cut it. So just tear it into shreds. No, I know you like chicken. Now, because this is the thigh meat of the chicken, the dark meat, it's got quite a bit of its own fat in it. So this won't need any additional oil to fry it. It's probably enough meat, so we've got like a handful each. And I think we will also have in there some parsnips, which I'll cut into little half moons. I know all about the chicken. And those leftover braised celery and carrot we'll have as well. As well as, why not, the skin from that sweet potato, which I peeled off earlier. If I cut that into strips, like that, and mix that in with the chicken, it might just be the same. You can use the same frying pan, just give it a little white brown. And first in with the chicken, which we'll give a little stir around because I want to get this maybe to have some little crispy edges and stuff on it, perhaps. Okay, now from the spice rack, a little bit of cumin. Not too much because there's only a small dish here, so just a little pinch of cumin. And I'm putting that in now because the heat of the pan will just bring that to life, that spice. Okay, the other bits can go in now. And now also from the spice rack, a little bit of sweet paprika. Now this burns really quickly, so we need to be careful here. And we'll just give it a little toast, and then a ladle full of that soup. Also, that plum tomato, I'm just going to tear up and put in there in chunks. Pretty good. I'm just going to take that off the heat for a moment because I've just got one more thing to go in there, which is going to be some of these kidney beans. And I'll just simmer that till it reduces a little bit so it's not too sloppy. And while that's happening, it's just going to get a little bit of seasoning. Now I haven't put any chilli in here because Jenny's not a fan, so I will have chilli flakes on mine at the table, or some hot sauce or something like that. Anyway, I'm going to turn the heat down on that and let that reduce down just a little bit while we just do the last two ingredients, which is going to be these leaves from out the middle of the bunch of celery. something like that. And about half of this remaining cheese which I'll just crumble up into that dish there like that. Okay. Okay, so here's the general idea. Just take one of these, take a bit of that, a little bit of this, and in my case some chili flakes. A little bit overstuffed there actually. So here we go. We had tacos in lentil and oat pancakes. It worked. All right.
Yeah.
I'll get it down closer so you can see that again. I'll have that one because it's a bit weird. Some of that stuff on there. And there's going to be loads of that left over. Some green stuff on there. And a little bit of crumbly cheese. The good thing is it doesn't take an awful lot of cheese really. You know, it's almost like a garnish, but because it's on top, you encounter it first. Chili flakes. And then attempt to pick it up. Probably way too full, but there we go. So these pancakes aren't anything like flatbreads. They aren't anything like tortillas, but it does work. Well, Jenny's going back for a second one, so I must have done something right. All right. I'll just show you what's happening outside our window. Big one or small one?
Small one will be fine.
Sure. Oh, there's another one hidden underneath there. So you might get two. You might get the bonus one. Now this is the one that's got holes in it, so this could be challenging. But this stuff is not too sloppy, so it might be all right. So what about a bit of, this is not the right cuisine, but sweet chili sauce instead. Well, there it goes. That also works. Acceptable?
Yeah.
Right. This leftover filling here, I'm going to get that, well, apart from that bit, I'm going to get that cooled down and chilled quickly. It has already been cooked and cooled and stored once already. And you've got to be a little bit careful with leftovers like that. But the most important thing to be aware of is the total time at which it stayed at a warm temperature. So I will put this in a nice big flat tray so it cools down quickly. Get that in the fridge, and then we can use that tomorrow for something else. Supper is going to be soup, which has been in the fridge. So this is cooled down now. And I'm only going to heat up exactly the right amount because I have some ideas about what we might do with the leftovers, and there's no point heating it up only to cool it down again. So yeah, it needs a little bit of thinning down as well. So I'm going to put that much in the pan and that much, and then top that off with stock. So we've still got some leftover soup there. That'll go back in the fridge now because that doesn't need warming up. But we do have a bit of chicken stock left, so that's going to be the thing that we use to dilute it. All right, time to serve up. So to go alongside that soup, we're going to have a piece of this savoury flapjack. So we'll just have a little bit of celery garnish on there. And there is still some cheese left. So just a little bit of crumbled cheese on top as well. Okay, now, I'm not going to make you sit and watch me at the table, so just give us a little taste here. It's good. A really hearty, savoury vegetable and lentil soup. And a piece of flapjack to dunk in it. Also very good. and a good combination. Okay, it's actually day 3 now, so I want something for breakfast. And there is a very varied and odd assortment or assemblage of leftovers here. I'm going to try to make something called masala porridge or masala oats with almost none of the right ingredients. That is something of a theme for this series, isn't it? Anyway, to start with, it'd be good if we had some onions. And the only thing that's actually got a lot of onions in it is this bit of leftover soup here, so that's going to go in there. We've got to use this gravy somehow, so that's going to go in there as well. Got a bit of chicken stock left, and we have actually got quite a lot of sauce, tomato-y sauce from these beans. And there's a bit of sweet potato left in there as well, so I think that might go in there. Maybe the parsnips. Anyway, to start with, it's going to be celery again. I'm not complaining. I like celery. We'll just have one stick though. Okay, starting with a bit of vegetable oil in a pan. There's about a tablespoon of oil there. We'll just get that hot. And then in with the diced celery. And I'm just going to let that just sizzle a little bit until it goes translucent. And then I've got some curry powder, just, you know, standard medium curry powder. And about a teaspoon of that is going in. That's good. Just fry that for about a minute just to bring out the flavours, but before it burns, last little bit of chicken stock, leftover lentil and vegetable soup, and from these baked beans, just the sauce, just the tomato sauce, which has got some sugar in it. And the leftover gravy from Sunday, non-Sunday dinner. As soon as that comes up to a simmer, I'm just going to start throwing oats in there until I feel like we've got enough to thicken it and make a porridge. We're just going to put a handful of oats in there, see what that looks like. So we need more than that. Another handful. Making a mess of the cooker. A little bit more. That'll do. Yeah, that looks about right. Lid on. Simmer that for a few minutes, just to let those oats swell up and absorb some of that sauce. Meanwhile, over here from the leftovers box, we've got parsnips. I think just for a little bit of additional flavour in there and sweetness. I'll just dice those. They're fully cooked, so those will go straight in the pan just to warm through. And although I have taken most of the leafy bits out of the celery here, there is still the very best bit, which is the little sweet, nutty stalks in the middle. Okay, so there we go. Masala oats or masala porridge. None of the right ingredients here, apart from oats, I suppose. So we should set our expectations accordingly. That tastes really good, though. That is surprisingly good. One of the best things I've had in this episode, actually. That's really good. We are going to have one more fridge ingredient here, which is going to be a little dollop of plain yogurt. Plus my celery garnish. There we go. That is really good. I'm not kidding, actually. That is one of the best things we've had in this episode. Now we could go on. We've got eggs, we've got oats, we've got lentils left. We've got 2 different kinds of beans. We've got some leftovers here, but we are now running out of flavour ingredients. We've got plenty of sustenance left, but we're running out of tasty things. So we'll make one last dish, and this is going to be a bit of a kind of long shot really, because again, none of the right ingredients. So this leftover, this was the filling that I made for the weird pancake tacos. That I'm just going to chop up quite finely. This has got some onions and this has got some tomatoes in it. I'm going to use that plus the baked beans plus another couple of little grabs from the cupboard. So a little bit of oil, tomato puree from the ingredients cupboard. I have about a tablespoonful of that in there. Just going to fry that for a bit in the oil, just to bring out the flavours a bit. Then chilli flakes. About a half a teaspoonful. And again, we just fry those because the flavour will come out into the oil. My leftover, whatever that is, my baked beans. Add a bit of water. And I'm just going to bring that together to a gentle simmer. So I think we might turn the heat down now. We have actually 3 eggs left. So I'm kind of ashamed of this, to be honest, because this is probably a travesty. But we are going to make something that's somewhere in the very general and vague vicinity of shakshuka. And this is not the right lid for this frying pan, but it does kind of fit. Okay, well, I strongly suspect this doesn't even deserve to be mentioned in the same sentence as shakshuka, but there it is. Anyway, that's the best I could do with the ingredients I have, or at least, and the skills, of course. But, you know, it may yet surprise me. Okay, well, here we go. So the egg, I don't know what happened to the yolk there. Oh, it is kind of in there. Well, I mean, it's not horrible. It's definitely lacking in tomatoes, and also contains altogether far too many beans, I think. Yeah, I think the best that can honestly be said about this is it's not terrible. So I think we've reached the end now. I think we should stop trying to make things with what we got left. What we have got left is a fair old bit. But anyway, back to Studio Shrimp now for the analysis, lessons learned, and all of that kind of stuff.
So, conclusions. Obviously £10 is a bigger budget than we had back at the start of this series. And it is true that the cost of food has sharply risen since that time, although a lot of people looking in from outside of the UK keep telling me that our food is still really cheap. I suppose cost of living always includes a lot of other factors such as fuel, clothing, transport, taxes versus the actual income levels of people here. I think you have to look at the whole picture rather than just this one piece, which is food cost. Anyway, how did this go? I would say fairly well. And the main reason for that is the loosening of constraints. Although there was a budget of £10, which ultimately did limit the shopping, and we have spent more than that on just buy the cheapish things. But there wasn't a limit on the number of items, or the number of items from any one department or category. I just bought whatever I wanted to and was available from within the budget. Loosening the constraint on cupboard ingredients also helped a lot, even though I think I only use smallish and reasonable amounts of cupboard, fridge and spice rack items. And as I say, this is in service of the realism requests that a lot of people have made. It definitely helps hugely to be able to just reach out and grab a little bit of butter, or a spoonful of curry powder, or a splash of oil. Here on screen is the list of additional ingredients that I used from the cupboard. It is quite a lot of different things, although only small amounts, but I did try to limit it to the more commonly kept items. Within any set of constraints, though, there is always this tension and competition between nutrition, variety, flavour and energy. And this typically results in one or two of those four factors being compromised. In this case, not immediately, but at the end of the exercise, which was like 2.5 days worth of meals and things, there was enough energy left in the form of lentils and oats, but no fresh vegetables left, and no particularly tasty ingredients left. No onions or tomatoes, so the factors of nutrition, variety and flavour were up against a wall. And this is why I keep saying, and I will say again, this video series does not prove any point about how easy it supposedly is to cook and eat cheaply. If anything, it proves the opposite. This was difficult. It took a fair bit of time and effort on my feet in the kitchen, which for me I have the luxury of regarding as a recreational activity, with the safety net of knowing that I have other food to fall back on if these dishes turned out to be inedible. Not everyone has that, and not everyone enjoys being in the kitchen like I do. Of course, most of you watching this are decent, compassionate people, but to the small minority that are not, don't use my videos to tell people in financial and time hardship how easy you think their situation is. That's never been the point of this series, and if you think that, I don't agree with you. Anyway, time to rate all these dishes. The main dinner, Sunday roast, except not recorded on a Sunday. We both enjoyed this, and it was a decent and satisfying and filling plate of food. I personally would have enjoyed more green vegetables on the plate, maybe at least some peas and probably cabbage or cauliflower or something like that. Fresh veg was a little bit short in the shopping, but to have included it, something else, probably several other things in the basket, would have had to be omitted. I'm going to give this dish 8 out of 10 though, because what there was here was all good. And the braised celery, I like celery anyway, but I really enjoyed it in this presentation. 11's is the savoury vegetable flapjack thing. Genuinely very tasty, and although you've maybe seen me attempt to make things that came out looking a bit like this in previous episodes that were disappointing, this one wasn't. And that, I think, is because of the cheese and the eggs and the additional mixed dried herbs. This one's going to get another 8 out of 10. If I make this again, which I definitely will, to improve on it, I might use a more cheesy tasting cheese, like mature cheddar or Gruyere. I'd probably grate some extra cheese on top so it goes crispy in the oven. It only occurred to me afterwards that a piece of this stuff could have been served in place of something like sage and onion stuffing on that roast dinner plate, and it wouldn't have been out of place. Breakfast, chicken on the outside pie. I'm happy with the flavour and eating experience for this one, and it all just worked, and it tasted good, and it had nice textures and such. I'm only giving this one 6 out of 10, however, because it slightly fell down on aesthetics. The top looked nice, but the underside, where it was chicken sausage meat dotted with oats, looked pretty unappealing. Didn't bother me too much because I knew what it was, but if I served this to someone else, I could see how they might not find that appealing. Also on aesthetics, while it was technically possible just to pick this up and eat it, which was one of my design criteria, it only just met that requirement. If I'd been trying to eat this whilst walking or on the bus or train, I think it might not have gone so smoothly. Lunch of ethnically ambiguous pancake tacos. I think this one probably gets a 7 out of 10. Everything worked, and it was nice, but it was a little bit weird. The pancakes were a little bit soft and fluffy to use in this way, which is kind of a weird critique, since soft and fluffy would be a huge success in any other pancake context. We both enjoyed it. Could have done with maybe another couple of pancakes each, as there was filling left over. Supper, lentil and vegetable soup with a savoury flapjack. This one can also have a 7 out of 10. This was tasty and it had a lot of good stuff in it, but it was a very light meal. Maybe more suited to being a lunch, actually. Both Jenny and I got a bit peckish later in the evening and had to find something to nibble on to stave off the rumblies. It was good soup, though. Breakfast of masala oats using nearly all the wrong ingredients. This was superbly delicious and surpassed all of my expectations. This one actually gets a rare score of 10 out of 10. Not kidding, this is by far and away my favourite way to eat porridge, I've just right now decided. And also because this was made with some of the leftover lentil soup, it's probably quite a good breakfast, as it contains some carbs to get you moving, plus some protein for nutritional balance. And lentils, together with oats, means a pretty well-rounded set of essential amino acids in this meal. I'm not sure, but I think this might be the best tasting and most enjoyable dish of the entire series. Lunch of not even remotely shakshuka, well, as I said at the tasting, the best I can say about this is that it wasn't terrible. 3 out of 10 or whatever. But it actually highlights two things. One of those things is what happens when you have enough actual food, but not the right kind of food. There were plenty of ingredients left, and plenty of sustenance and energy and overall nutrition. There just weren't enough of the right ingredients left to create something really tasty. The other thing, or maybe it's the same thing, is that this highlights an obvious wrong choice in the shopping. I don't think I should have bought the baked beans. Ideally, I should have bought another can of tomatoes instead, but that would have taken me over budget by a few pence. Maybe I should have dropped the kidney beans in favour of a second can of tomatoes, and that would have come to exactly £10, and the baked beans would have still worked in the taco things, and the extra can of tomatoes would have carried us a little bit further, and the shakshuka would have been better, if still far from perfect, and maybe we could have stretched to another soup or stew or something out of the remaining stuff. Speaking of remaining stuff, here's what was left at the end of all of this. About 2/3 of the can of red kidney beans, a box of leftover chicken and roast vegetables, 1 egg and a little bit of cheese, 3 or 4 sticks of celery, about 2/3 of the lentils, including the ones I ground up to lentil meal, we didn't even actually use that stuff, and about 2/3 of the oats, including a little bit of the fine oatmeal. None of these things will go to waste, but I will need to add more stuff to make them into anything, which is why this video ends around about here. You might see some of these bits pop up in a random stuff episode though, maybe. Anyway, I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.